A new Little League field will be built in Hyannis. We have an update on the West Barnstable shooting range, and we find out how the first week of school went for Barnstable students. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Monday, September 8th, 2014. I'm Sarah Mannel. Two important community preservation projects are moving forward. Assistant Town Manager Mark Ells says Town Council approved spending $100,000 to help pay for a new Little League field at BCH PCS.
Little League came forward with a request to CPC. It got unanimously approved at CPC for really a replacement of a ball field behind the old High East Elementary School, right next to the HYCC. When they constructed the HYCC almost a decade ago, they lost a field back there. And this is a culmination of efforts. They had gone through the town and looked where they might replace that field, and ultimately it came back to that site. So it's very exciting. Certainly there's a lot of kids in those neighborhoods. Little League's a great program. They take any kid, every kid, to participate, and they had a combination of CPC, their money, and then private donations. The LaRusso Foundation stepped up and played a big part in this. So it's a very exciting night for them, and they also started with their championship team there.
That's right.
All the boys were there, and that was just wonderful. Just illustrated what a good program they have, and a nice group of kids.
Ells says improvements to the nearby skate park were also approved during last week's town council meeting.
You know, all activities like that, especially under the oversight of Patty Machado and her staff, is such a positive thing. They really, not only do they allow for the activities, but they look out for the kids. And that's what it's all about. And certainly what they're doing in that general area with the HYCC, moving the basketball courts, improving the skate park, adding another ball field, improving the playground over there, it's just such a nice addition and improvement to that area. And hopefully we'll see some more. We'd like maybe another athletic field so we can, you know, maybe get some soccer or something going out there would be wonderful as well. There's some preliminary discussions about how to use the rest of the area out there.
Town staff are already beginning the process of preparing for the next budget cycle. Ells says working on the budget is nearly a year-round process.
At this point, we've actually began preliminary discussions. The instructions for the FY16 CIP are out. The budget calendar is in a final draft form. And basically it outlines everything from what I've just said through discussions with our school department, which are ongoing. We meet weekly, not about budget necessarily, but we certainly are talking about it at this point. The focus initially is on the CIP portion of our budget. And the first couple of steps are to issue the instructions, issue the calendar, go back and look at all of the existing CIPs, see what the status of those projects are, see if any prioritization has changed. And we do this both for municipal and for schools. Then we also begin to look at, a little bit later in the fall here, a little into October, we're looking at positions and potential modifications to any positions. Even the request for additional positions come in, and we begin to look at what we have and what we're discussing for change and what we might need, and see if there's any reprioritization that may occur. We also complete rate studies where those are appropriate, and go through whatever the review process might be relevant to those. And there's 2 rate hearings, one in the fall, usually in early November, and then one just after the first of the year. So when you set your calendar year rates, that's the November hearing. When you set your fiscal year rates for next July 1, those will probably be January. I'd have to look at the budget calendar, see if it's January or February. So yes, we are actively involved in the budget process.
Town staff continue to work to reopen the West Barnstable shooting range. Elle says making that happen is a very complicated process.
You know, we were talking about this land swap that was requested initially by the state, the Division of Conservation Services at the state, so that we could address some inconsistencies with their policy on passive recreational use, which a shooting range, you know, under their definition isn't.
Right.
So they wanted to clean that up, and we're still in discussions with them, and they want to have a memorandum of agreement relative to the use of that range on that parcel. Initially, we had one, and we had agreed to it, and then just before the last discussion with council, they called us and said, well, you know, we're not ready to sign that yet, and we need to take it under review. So that's one change that we don't know what will result from that. And, you know, we're not going to rush it. We're not going to try to, you know, put it out there without a thorough review by staff, and then given certainly town councilors, you know, adequate time to review, and then we will move forward with it. Since July, the town manager has been in discussions with Public Works, because one of the things that we've said from, you know, initiating this process of closing the range was, you know, if it falls, certainly if it falls under the manager, but if it's a town facility and asset, we're going to run it in a safe manner, and we mean safe both from an environmental standpoint and from an operations standpoint. So we've begun some preliminary investigations beyond what conservation had done of the site and the lead content, and, you know, do we have any broader concerns there? And so Dan Santos, our Director of Public Works, will be coming forward with some of the scope and the budget requirements and ultimately the results of that in the relatively near future. So none of this is unanticipated. This was all part of what it would take if we take it over and we run it under the town's manager's office with our professional staff, and that's the way we're assuming we're proceeding at this point.
And Town Council is expected to vote on that proposed land swap later this month. Last week was the first week back to school for Barnstable Public School students. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mary Schakowsky, says it was a great first week.
You know, I had an opportunity this year. Once again, I visit each of the schools on the opening day, and you know, to see the students back, organized, focused, ready to learn. You know, there's the quietness of a room, walking into a room into a second grade classroom where I say good morning, and, you know, they say good morning, but they're totally, you know, focused and just really being really, really, really good. But it was great to see all the kids back. I went and had an opportunity to visit each of the schools along with our new assistant superintendent, Kristen Harmon. And, you know, I think the teachers are ready. I know it was a short summer, but I think, you know, students, they like that structure. They like that routine. And, you know, part of it is also getting back into a routine with not only learning, but seeing their friends, okay, getting involved in activities and school in a structured way. So, you know, there's a lot to that first few days in getting yourself organized and getting yourself back into a routine. And, you know, I was very, very pleased. We had very minimal, I mean, if any, really issues with respect to school. I think the biggest thing that we're continuing to monitor is our enrollment. And, you know, I know I was talking to Frank at BWB, and from June to the first day of school over the summer, he had 26 new students registered that were not at BWB. And granted, we do lose some, so he had lost about 4 or 5, but he said that was unusually high. So I know overall our enrollment, a tentative number, we're up by about, you know, 60 or 70 students, but we continue to monitor that, because even in the next 3 to 4 weeks, there's a lot of still transition and movement, kids moving in, kids moving out. So our October 1 number will be more accurate, but we're continuing to monitor that. But I think that the pattern has been, like I've said before, our elementary enrollment, you know, continuing to rise a bit. So we'll keep an eye on that.
And the school committee will meet tomorrow night at 7 in the town hall hearing room. We'll be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program, Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 7 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we will chat with Police Chief Paul McDonald. We'll learn more about Sandy Neckboard with Chair Rich French, and we'll learn to golf with host Sarah Colvin. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.